Hi, this is Gayle from BERNINA of Naperville, and behind me is some progress on our Bloom and Grow Surge Along. Now, welcome to Lesson 9 as I take you through some extra steps that I did or just some new techniques that I did in enhancing what Mary Beck put together on the BERNINA Skill Hub courses. So let's roll up our sleeves, look at our interactive presentation deck, and get started.
Just like every month that we've done these lessons, we are combining our special things that we're doing with what Bernina of America has put together on the Bernina Skill Hub. There, Mary Beck, who is a Bernina overlocker serger expert, is going to take you through how this particular quilt was meant to be made by the designer, Amanda Murphy. She's going to take you through all of the tips and tricks and supplies and cutting and all of that. And what do? Well, we kind of give you some little helpful hints and suggestions along the way. And we are making our quilt as a quilt as you go. We have had 8 lessons prior to this one. And so if you decide to join us, you will get this interactive handout. Or if you are already joining us, you know you get one of these every month. And you can go back and look at all of the previous lessons that we've done. And this month, it's lesson 9. So here's our schedule. It's January 10th. And so we're working today on our flowers, vines, and leaves. And once again, just to reiterate, the Bloom and Grow project is on the Bernina Skill Hub. And the Bernina Skill Hub is Bernina's direct-to-customer education platform where you will create a username and login. And then if you haven't logged on in a while, you need to use a verification code every once in a while. Now, the Bernina Skill Hub also houses a lot of other lessons, and you can certainly go there to their course catalog and see all of their offerings. But like I mentioned, we are in Bloom and Grow land right now, so I'm going to go back to my dashboard and to the Bloom and Grow that's in my particular group of classes. And we are going in our own particular order, but we are getting to the end of this assignment, and the flower stems and leaf block are part of that. And by launching the flower stems and leaf block portion, it is going to open up the lesson where it explains what you're going to be doing in each lesson, and it explains about preparing your applique with a video. And then you can just go through at the little bottom of the screen here, all of the different things that are going to be necessary if you're following Mary Beck's instructions to the T. But like I mentioned many times, we've broken this project into 12 Serger Quilt as You Go sections, and we premiere them once a month on our Bernina of Naperville YouTube channel. This lesson, we are going to be creating a decorative flower stem with the new belt loop attachment for the Bernina sergers. We're going to cut and add decorative edges to leaves, and we're going to cut and add a decorative edge to the flower petals. So you're going to need some supplies, and this is going to consist of the applique stem and vine unit that you see here. I'm calling this Unit 2. And I'm using the 50-weight gray Ceracore. I'm also using 60-weight Metler cotton thread. I'm using light teal spaghetti, dark teal spaghetti, and peacock glamour. Our featured machine is the Bernina L890, and we are using a bias ruler from Creative Grids, a 505 glue stick, and some heat and bond light. You're going to need about a yard, 3/4 to a yard of that. So there's a new product alert. So Bernina just introduced a new belt loop maker, and this is going to be used with the accessory attachment. That's the one that's been used with their binder attachments. But now we have something else that we can attach to this, and that's the belt loop makers. They come in 3 sizes. We're going to be using the finished 10mm one, but there's also a 15mm and a 20mm, and you can see them there. And I'll show you exactly how to use these in just a moment. But from the kit, we're going to be using certain fabrics, and we've got a background for what we're going to applique our stem on. We've got our stem fabric, 4 fabrics to make up the flower, and then some leaf fabric. And then once we get all of that together, we want to prepare our bits before we start any kind of serging. And the first one is you're going to take your leftover fabric for these leaves and you're going to apply the heat and bond light to the wrong side of your leaf fabric. So I took my remainder of my fabric and I cut it to about 26 inches in length. And then I added the heat and bond onto the wrong side, pressed it down, then let it cool and remove the paper. Then I carefully folded that piece with the fusible web on top of the other side that didn't have any fusible web, and then I adhered those. And I ended up being able to get 12 leaves out of this, but you will have enough of your prep chunk left for oopsies, or if you just want to add more leaves. Secondly, we need our flower preparation. Now, you can cut flower shapes from scrap paper and then trace it onto your flowers. I just kind of improv'd and free-formed my flower shapes. You could also just make circles if you wanted to. This is your project and you can do anything that you want, but whatever you do, you want to make sure that you cut gentle curves because it will be much easier to sew around your weird little egg shapes, right? Fried egg shapes, rather. Another thing about preparation is we're going to need to prepare the stem. And I like to use this Creative Grids bias ruler. So let's have a look at how I did that. This ruler is the Bias Binder Simplified from Creative Grids. And basically, it is a ruler with instructions on it that tell you how to fold your fabric and all of that stuff. Now, one of the things I want to tell you in Mary's instructions, she has you cutting your bias pieces a little bit larger than I am, but that's because I'm going to be doing a totally different method than she is. So this is I'm going to show you a new technique with a new accessory. So hang on to those thoughts for just a second. But what I had to do, because this ruler gives you the traditional like 2-inch, 2 1/4, or 2.5-inch options there, and there, it does not give you a 20 millimeter option. So what I had to do is find a millimeter ruler. And of course I have one right here. And then I marked off, this is just a very thin strip of blue painter's tape. So what I did is I measured off 20 millimeters, or rather 20 centimeters, and applied my blue tape so it was perfectly straight. And then I just used a rotary cutter to cut it and then peel it away, leaving it so it was 1/8 of an inch. And so now this line right here is what I'm going to need when I do my cutting. And once you've cut your strips, you're simply going to sew them together like you would sew bindings together. And you can use your sewing machine or you can use your cover stitch machine set up for a 2-thread cover stitch. Likewise, you're going to want to either do a chain stitch or a sewing machine stitch to stitch the 3.5-inch strip to the 40-inch strip of the background fabric. Now, let's make the stem and see how this goes. So the instructions for this Creative Grid ruler are right on the ruler. So you're going to start with a rectangle of fabric, and then you're going to fold the bottom half up at an angle like that. Then you're going to take this corner and fold it to that corner. And now normally when you're doing this, you'd be working with larger yardage, but this is just a great way for those of you that want to cut a lot of these strips to do it. And then if you need to cover more, you can fold it up again like this. But in my case, this is plenty short for this ruler. So now I'm just going to take any straight edge here and cut a clean seam. Okay. Then once that's cut, all you have to do is take the edge of our blue tape and line it up to that seam and cut. So you might want to cut a few long strips like this, but with this method, you cut all the shorties and whatever. So I've got two here, but I'm gonna cut another piece. So once you've cut your stems, you're going to want to sew them together. And like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter what you use, either a two thread chain stitch on your L890 or a regular straight stitch on your sewing machine. You're going to sew them together with that mitered technique and pressing your seams open so they'll go through your little belt loop attachment. And I'm going to show you a little bit of troubleshooting to make sure that you have a great experience. I promised you that I was going to show you the cool thing that we're going to use this month. And this is the new, or one of the new accessories from Bernina, the belt loop folder. And they come in three sizes: finished 10 millimeter, finished 20 millimeter, and finished 15 millimeter. I decided to go with the thinner one, and this particular attachment also requires the attachment that you would use for the binder, right? These came out a little bit back, so I don't need this one. So now I want to attach this guy onto here, and I'm not going to pay too much attention to exactly where it goes for right now. I just want to make sure it doesn't fall off. And then your accessory attachment comes with 4 screws to attach it to your machine. Now, you don't need all 4 screws. The long screws with the little longer thing, see how this one is a little bit shorter? The long ones are for Burnett's. The short ones are for the Bernina L850, L860, L890. Now, this particular attachment only works with cover stitching. So in this case, we're going to be attaching this to our Bernina L890. So here are my examples. This is the first one that I tried with some of my little shorter strips that I did earlier, and it came out great, but I want something a little bit more exciting. So this is the light teal thread in the cover stitch looper, and then through the needles are my white 60 weight Metler silk finish thread. So now what I've done is off camera, just like Mary showed you, I have stitched my bias 3 long pieces together like such. And now let me show you how to use that belt looper to create this example. See here how I've attached my piece to my serger. There's 2 little holes there, and I've used those screws with the shorter threaded pieces. And then this one is adjustable so that you can line it up exactly where you need it to go. And we're going to be sewing our pieces with this upside down. And if you look at my sample piece, you can kind of see that it's sewing this way, right? Because I start with the little point like that. And it looks like it could be moved just a wee bit to the right. So I'm going to undo this. And move it just a wee bit. Okay. Now, when you prep your piece to feed it through this mechanism, it's going to go in with the right side up, but you also need a little point to get started. I also like to use my stiletto to poke this through. So we're going to just push this through. Okay, so now I'm going to lift my presser foot and I'm going to push gently. Kind of lifting there like that. And I just want to get that started. Now I'm going to clamp down with my foot. And now we're going to stitch. And notice how this is doing all of the work here like that. But you do want to make sure that your seams, when you joined your 2 pieces together,
are pressed open. Actually, I should have moved this direction. I got my direction screwed up a little bit. Okay, now I'm coming up on this seam, so I'm just going to carefully let that piece do its business. Let's have a look at it. And it didn't quite get tucked under there. You know what? That's okay. I can hide a leaf over that piece, or I could pull this out and do it again, or I could do another piece. Let's go ahead and finish this off and see what the whole piece looks like in its entirety. Okay, so the way that I dealt with the little bulky business here is I just pre-folded and pressed, because it goes right in, raw edges together here. And then I did it the same way on the other side, just kind of, really what I'm doing is I'm encouraging that seam to just want to go in that direction. Kind of like taming a cowlick, Okay, so now as I fed it through, then that went smoothly under the machine. Okay, now this time I was able to manage the bulk a little bit because I pre-pressed my seams over. I also think a good idea might be to interface the pieces, but nonetheless, this is perfectly fine for my stem because remember, we also have some applique bits that we're going to put on here. Once you've prepared your applique stem, we're going to actually attach it to the background fabric. By now, you should have sewn the little extra piece to the bottom of your backing like Mary shows you in the Skill Hub courses. But we are going to first prepare our background piece for the path that we're going to place the stem along. I want to draw, just like Mary did, a curvy, gentle, curvy line so we can applique this stem. So I'm just simply going to curve it. And if you were really uptight, you would probably not even need to curve it. You could just draw it completely straight. And if you zoom in here, you can see my curved line. So to start it, I want to put my piece right side up. And I'm just going to line that up here like this. I'm going to sew it from top down. So I'm going to put the heads of my pins in this direction. And then I'm just going to gently curve this around. And now you do want to stop this about 9 inches from the top edge of your fabric, which I've done.
And then ultimately, we're going to trim this up.
So the only difference here is that I have switched my machine to a 3-thread wide cover stitch, and I'm going to be putting on that compensating cover stitch foot. And that's this one here, and ideally this opening here will glide right over our stem applique. So you saw me draw my line of where I'm starting, and it's right there. So I'm just going to line that up like this, lower my presser foot, and we're going to stitch. And I'm going to place my needles in the down position, remove my pin. There we go. And then keep everything nice and flat. And I'm really doing barely anything to hold this on and keep it into position. It's doing it really nicely. And then don't forget to use your lock tool so it doesn't come undone. We didn't use the lock tool on our stem creation because I sewed off.
I took the time to trim the background piece for my flower to 16.5 inches by 42 inches. And you can see how cute my little stem looks. And so now let's go on with our leaf and our flower construction. Now let's change our attention to our flowers. We're going to set the L890 up for a 3-thread narrow stitch number 7 with gray Saracore in the thread, and the upper looper is light teal spaghetti with peacock glamour. So that means you're going to use your thread cradle like you've used in other months to thread that upper looper, and the lower looper is going to have the dark teal spaghetti. And follow the threading instructions on the L890 guided access screen. And it's important to trim 1/8 of an inch off of your edges of your flowers. And I increased my cutting width to 8 millimeters, but you might also consider going around the stubborn edges of these flowers twice. It adds a thick decorative edge, and you might just like it, but play around with this one.
Just like Mary, I have my number C23 curved foot on, and I have my glamour and my spaghetti thread that I used a thread cradle on to thread my upper looper. And in the lower looper, I have the dark teal spaghetti. So now I'm just going to start going around my flower, and I'm just going to trim the edge off of this fabric. See how I'm just trimming a little bit? Now the small one is kind of the more difficult one to do because it's tighter curves. And I'm going to go all the way around, try to taper in that seam. And then just for now, we're going to leave our tail. And we'll put this with the leaves.
Now there always seems to be the pesky one that gives you an awful fit. See that? So what I'm going to do is I lowered my blade and I'm simply going to go around again. Now this isn't going to look like a narrow hem. It's going to look like a padded hem of some kind, but this is embellishment and this will definitely leave a lettucey kind of edge on this, and I think it's going to look kind of cool. So I'm just going to make sure I over sew and grab that fabric and just kind of go with the flow here. And what it's doing is it's adding a lot more thread onto the edge and covering that area. And this way I'm ensuring that I don't have any of these narrow edges slipping off the edge of my fabric. And I think that this would have done better if we would have also done the fusible web method with these flowers, but that would make this awfully thick. So if you want to do a second pass around, I think that would look really cute. And that's kind of what I'm liking about this. Now, if you're tending to getting a little slip off the edge of the fabric, increase your cutting width. Now that we've completed all of our flowers, it's time to set up for our leaves. You're going to set your L890 up for a 3-thread narrow stitch number 7. This is also available on any overlock machine. And the needle's going to have gray Ceracore. The upper looper has dark teal spaghetti, and the lower looper has light teal spaghetti. And we're going to follow the threading instructions on the L890 guided access screen. I just reduced my cutting width to 6 millimeters. And I drew with blue pen, and you're going to align that blue pen line with your blade as you edge stitch each leaf. I made 12, remember, with this special stitch that, believe it or not, is engaged with the rolled hemmer, but we're not actually doing a rolled hem. So what you're going to want to do with this is with your flower, you're going to leave a little tail and put your fray block on. And then once your fray block dries, you're going to clip your threads really close to the edge. Once that's complete, you're going to do the same thing with your leaves. I've already put my fray block on, and now I'm just trimming off my tails. But I like to put the fray block on before you trim the tails. And then these leaves are lovely because you can use either side, either the light side or the dark side. So for next time, we're actually going to quilt this strip, and we're going to have some things to add to this. And we're also going to quilt our flower head on the stem here like that. And we're going to quilt our leaves onto our work.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us this month. It was really fun, and next month is going to be wild because we're going to be quilting the flower section and sewing down those petals and leaves as we quilt. So you're not going to want to miss that. And as always, I thank you very much for watching this video and surging along with us. And if you want to see more videos, more tutorials, and all kinds of fun stuff, don't forget to hop on over to our Bernina of Naperville YouTube channel. It's easy. It's youtube.com/Bernina of Naperville. And there you can like, comment, and subscribe. Happy surging.